everybody. Welcome to Human Design Coffee Talk.
We are here in person together for a change.
Today we are talking with James Alexander, and we're going to be talking about differentiation in education for human design. So welcome. Yeah, go ahead. Hello everybody.
Hey.
As you're hopping on, if you want to let us know anything about your design, where you're coming in from. We are in Aura. I think I saw James hop on. I just haven't gotten a request yet. Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Oh, from Norway.
Cool.
Awesome.
Hey.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to get this thing right.
It's like shores on shores.
Yeah.
We're here for that.
Let me scoot back.
Hey, Jen. Six two, 6'3", San Diego, Des Moines. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. You're sideways.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get, because I'm getting cut off here a little bit.
Oh, lower it. There.
Doesn't quite
Oh.
do. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So when did you guys get together?
Yesterday?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Last
Cool.
night.
Yeah.
I hear you might be moving there, Teresa?
Yeah. We'll see. It feels like I'm supposed to be here. Every time I come, I'm like,
Yeah.
Yep. But you know how the emotional wave is. So, and then I'm also waiting on my husband's emotional wave too. If I were single, I'd probably already be here, but he's got his whole emotional process too. So,
Yeah.
gotta respect that.
No, I thought I was going to move from Philadelphia like 10 years ago, and I just never found clarity. So here I am.
I wondered
Yeah.
if that would happen to me. Like, am I just gonna keep floating in nothingness? But
Who knows?
yeah, you never know.
There's a lot of floating and emotional nothingness
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited to have a conversation about the education around human design. And I just kind of want to kick it off with, it's really interesting to me because and we've kind of chatted about this behind the scenes, but there's kind of like one path, right?
Right.
So you're in human design and you wanted to like go anywhere with either the foundational courses or analyst training or anything like that. I mean, there are, but there's like one main one, you know? And it's interesting to me how human design, we look at the differentiation of people and we experiment with that and we encourage that within the other. And yet there's still like one chosen path of education.
There's only one right way to be an individual, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's not talked about a lot. I mean, there's conversations about, we have this Instagram world where there's conversations about Instagram education and pop HD. We can have all those conversations all day long. This isn't about what's right or wrong. It's about being open and aware that there are other ways, and like you have a choice in no choice. There's options out there, and having a conversation around education.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously not practical to teach a course 20 different ways for 20 different people.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I think the difference is that I evaluate people by different standards based on their design, based on their variable, based on their type, based on their profile, based on their inner authority, so on. And I haven't seen a lot of that in the legacy programs, So there's one, course, but then in all of that kind of one-on-one support, it has to be tailored, And I have felt that the exams, the criteria have really kind of expected the same performance from everyone, and it just doesn't make sense. And I really don't even think that right-centric beings have really quite come into their power with readings yet, because it's really so left, you know, it's magic, you know, and it might be the case that, you know, right beings, you know, it's more of a dialogue. Maybe it is more counseling, maybe it is more coaching. But anyhow, I just want to kind of honor and recognize all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely speak to that because I did the foundational classes and I really enjoyed them. And then when it came to doing analyst training, I just was always a no to it. And even when I think back to receiving a foundation rating, it was given to me by a right being, but it still felt kind of strategic, and it felt almost like unnatural to be operating in that way. Yeah, and there's just something about it. Like, I just wasn't excited about it. It felt like, oh, you have to check all these boxes. You have to deliver it this way. And my work with clients, like you said, it's been so different. It's been more like, my favorite thing to do with a client is just, hey, tell me about what's going on in your life. Let's look at the chart and let's just go back and forth and kind of see what's up here. And you can pull from me, and I don't know what's going to come out. But it's not to like give a strategic foundational reading, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the other things that is kind of absurd, honestly, is there are some really long programs out there that are ultimately about just delivering a specific product, okay? And that product has a particular format, and it has a particular sequence and a particular process. And I feel that you know, formatting it is really so subjective. You know, why would you waste time, you know, focusing on that, you know, or making that right or wrong? That really comes down to the individual, you know? So for me, it's more about, you know, imparting an understanding where you can then do what feels right to you to do with it.
Yeah. And I'm a big sucker for honoring the integrity of things and the foundation of things. So this isn't we're not having a conversation about changing keynotes or the language, you know, it's the delivery. And that's very much something I felt after I finished my foundation courses. I had a response for analyst training, but I couldn't tell if that was from my mind or my body, because I was just like, well, yes, but this one path doesn't honor the way that I learn. You know? This one path doesn't honor, and I kind of talked to you about this too. You know, I'm first determination. And so when I was taking Living Your Design, it was like once a week and this. And I was like, give it. I like just drop all the courses and let me have it and let me drown myself in it. Like I couldn't even like consume it how I wanted to consume it. And which it was fine. I did it, you know, but it was just like I wasn't as excited or satisfied or satiated with it as I had hoped to be.
Yeah. Well, it's all about fractals.
Yeah.
Right? It really is. When you find that fractal connection, it's just smooth, it flows, everything clicks. And I think that one of the things I've realized is that in this field of human design, we're not all on one fractal. There's some loose affiliation, right? But there's subfractals, you know, here. And I think the field is still so young, but it's really developing and differentiating in a lot of new ways, you know? So, you know, it's all about getting, most importantly, it's who you learn from and whether you have that click or not.
Yeah, and a big piece that was missing for me, which us three are very passionate about, was I was actually, besides hearing about being a generator, sacral sounds, I was not guided to my body.
Yeah.
It was a lot about getting out of your mind.
And but like I needed concrete examples. Like how does this actually, like when you take a class, and I'm not bashing on LID, but when you take a class called Living Your Design, it's like, I don't know, I guess I just thought there would be more about like how does this actually show up in your everyday life? Like what are some concrete examples of what it is to live your design? And maybe there was some of that in there, but it was more about like learning about the types and like an overview of the system, it felt like, versus like actually living your design. So
yeah,
It's like living your design is just knowing stuff.
yeah, yes, yeah.
If you have this information, you've got it, you know?
Yeah.
No, it's whenever I do readings, and I guess I'll take a step back and just say that, you know, partly how I've developed the program that I'm offering and how I've developed the readings that I offer is I had to sort through all of my own confusions, which were many, you know? There's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of things that Ra stated very vaguely. They're correct, but it's kind of like, go north, you know? And you're like, okay, great. That's like 1,000 different paths I could take, you know? And I always say like having emotional authority was like being blindfolded and dropped off in a foreign country and asked to find some address, you know? And I figured it out, you know? But it took a few years to get there. And so there are some gaps in the teaching. There are some gray areas. Then there's things that are just overstated. You know, whenever Ross teaching anything, it's always, this is the thing, and it's always the way it is, and it's the most important thing ever, you know? And so the way that I'm designed, it's like, let's just fine tune that a little bit, you know? Because I didn't find it empowering. I was confused. You know, early on, I was still vetting human design, and I'm like, okay, I feel so seen, and so many things are clicking. But, you know, one of the things that I struggled with right at the beginning was the sacral response. As you might say, we all do. But my initial hit, if you will, was that this isn't it. This isn't the end all be all. And I was almost like, if this system thinks that I need to go for everything, it's a flawed system. And I almost discounted it from that. Except my reading touched me so much. And that person who gave me that reading was either the most incredibly talented psychic I ever met, or there was something to this knowledge. So I persevered, you know, and I tried the whole thing. But first off, that isn't the way for 3420s. That's not the way for emotional beings. And it's not even the way for people that don't even fall into those categories all of the time. There's an internal indicator in there. You know, it's very clear to me now, you know, with so many friends in the field and clients I've worked with, that there's different ways of accessing that truth. And when we get too linear about it, you are disempowering people and you're confusing them, you know, and we just need to open this up a little bit. And again, back to your point, Brandy, this isn't about reinventing anything. It's not about making human design sexier or trying to make it more marketable. It's that I have to own the fact that I have 8 years investigating this and I've drawn different conclusions. And you know what? It's a fucking experiment. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the way that when I've interacted with you, when you're interacting with other people's charts and things like that, the way that you see the things, I'm like, oh, you know, it sparks my curiosity for deeper parts of the system that I might have been turned off of because the learning is so linear.
Yeah.
You know? And so I appreciate that. I just want to say that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if you start today on the traditional path, you might get the substructure in like, what, 10 years maybe?
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, which also I think when you're like receptive or right oriented, there's I don't know, it's just, I'm such a sponge that I'm just taking it all in, and I feel like I was able to kind of understand the deeper stuff pretty quickly. Yeah. I don't know.
You're also a natural.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Also, second line. Like, I don't know what it is, but.
And that like literal permission slip for receptivity was like, oh, you know how much I've been like, we talk about like with like ADHD and all of those things with like masking and things like that. It was like, I can take this mask of logic off. I can take this mask of linear thinking off.
Right.
And I can embrace the fact that, you know, when I first started offering like foundation type readings to people, I would like sit down for an hour before and like fucking write shit out. Study. And I'm like, and I would call, I'm like, Teresa, and be like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But I wrote all these notes. And now I'm like, I don't even look at the chart before I even have a session with anybody, because of what comes out when the faucet's turned on. That's what you're getting. Yeah. Getting it right there.
Totally. I mean, listen, my mentor, Kamud Kabir, she said that the reading she got from Ra, now this is like circa 1997, wouldn't have passed the analyst training today. Mm-hmm. Now, she's not saying it was wrong. She's not saying it was bad. It was just very different, right? The standard was very different back then. And readings really started with a physics lesson. You would get a lesson on quarks and neutrons and leptons and whatever,
Yeah.
And then it got to the phase that Kamud was in where Ra would read the Ravi Ching to you, and the really type was just starting to develop and stuff like that. So all this needs to kind of grow and iterate. But my point of bringing this up is that it was Ra's transmission that really got her in the experiment.
Yep.
Right? And so that's really what you're pointing at. You need to have the confidence. First off, you need to be living it. Then you need to have the confidence and the response to be working with people. And if you do, it's all going to flow. It's all going to flow. You just have to trust that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I know some right beings who fully intended, started analyst training and then left because they're like, it's
too strategic.
Too strategic.
Yeah.
And like, I can fly, like I can, listen to these lectures and then I don't have to beat a dead horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think just understanding and honoring that we all learn differently. I think that's maybe that's just my mind thinking, but it's a big piece that's missing.
No, I think for sure it is. And listen, I'm 3 parts left. I have a right brain, and I rectified my chart 2 years ago. So I figured out I had a right brain pretty late in the experiment. But it really made sense because I always thought I didn't feel like a quad left, and my cognition was different. That didn't feel right. All these little pieces that I questioned suddenly came back into alignment. But having that right brain, it's just amazing how much, even though my mind is strategizing and it's linear and it's focused, like I can't push it too much. Most of my career has been channeling ideas for clients. Mm-hmm. I basically, my whole career, which was a creative director in marketing, I just channeled stuff. And when people asked me to do presentations and to map it out and build a case, it was such a drain. I'm like, it just came through me. I could just feel that it was correct. And so I guess my point is just, even with just this one part rightness, it's still a big piece of my life. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think none of us are saying that path is incorrect.
Yeah. No.
Yep.
It's just, why don't we have more options? I think it's just, there's an evolution in human design happening, especially since 2020, because I've known about design since 2017, but I saw it completely blow up in 2020, which makes sense because it's the last 7-year cycle before 2027.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's like a surgence of people who are meant to get this information out there, but there's also people that need to learn in a lot of different ways. And I don't know if Ra ever intended for it to be a monopoly like that, where it's just like it's this one thing and it's one path. But I think it's very clear that there needs to be some differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I can answer that question. I think there's a couple reasons why we are where we're at. And part of it I see from the perspective of my nodal journey. And I'm coming to the end of the first half of my life. I'm in the midst of my Uranus opposition. First half of my life has been in gate 49, line 3, which basically means I've been having a lot of trial and error in spiritual communities. Okay. And I'm a heretic.
No.
Right. Shocker. I know. And I've met a lot of these sort of, prolific, well-known spiritual teachers. And I always discover the human being that's there. I always discover the shadow. I always discover the limitation, which is exactly as it should be. It's just the pretense that there is none is the problem, right? Or it's the fact that what happens in any organization, whether we're talking about a spiritual community or whether we're talking about a corporation, is that people don't want to expose the shadows of the leader. It puts them in a vulnerable place. They know somewhere, most of them, if they start to venture in that territory, that, you might get your head chopped off. And so here we are. Ra's passed, obviously, but there's kind of, there's other people with vested interest that want to kind of keep things the way they are. And it's just anti-life. Life is change. Life is evolution. Life is mutation. Most of the gates in the body graph are individual. Life is about mutation. And again, a lot of people also can't kind of balance two concepts in their head of, okay, you're making a heretical point here, but I'm not opening the door for the slippery slope of, you know, making it up, you know. Gate 36 is never going to be the gate of cupcakes, you know. Like, that's not what I'm saying. So I think there's fear of challenging the guru. And I think the other thing is, and I can understand this a little bit more, is that I think that the people who are trained by Ra look out at this field and they just, you know, they feel like they have to dig their heels in even more to protect against the bastardization that is very real, the distortion that is very real. And these two sides become intransigent, you know, and one gets wackier and one just gets more and more stodgy and orthodox. But it's like, drop all that bullshit and just, you know, really be true to your own experiment and your own experience and just see, you know, what is real for you, you know?
Mm-hmm. And like, hey, let's move into like 9-centered ways of operating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hey, let's not do a top-down power structure where we limit what you can do with your education.
Let's
because that ain't cool.
Here's how to live as a 9-centered being under this 7-centered way.
Right.
What?
Yeah. It's sort of like, you know, I always say human design can either bring you more in your body or more in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing. There's this educational path that is supposed to be liberating you into a 9-centered way of living, but, you know, can also keep you stuck in the 7-centered, where they're trying to teach you how to be an individual or how to help other people individuate, but they're doing it in a homogenized way.
Can
we just have an honest, non-judgmental conversation about this? Can we just have a good laugh?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, we work on like our conditioning of our centers, and I'm thinking of the ego center, and it's like, you know your worth and blah, blah, blah. You can only charge this.
Right. Know your worth. And if you don't, here's what it is.
Here's what it is. And if you think you're worth more, you're not. Like,
right.
You must all be homogenized in your pricing. But you must also teach people to not live homogenized.
Yeah. I mean, as I start to, I have a couple people that work with me and help me with my business. And it's been interesting. It's been the very beginnings of starting to understand 9-centered relating in a business context.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it really starts to activate, you know, survival fears for some of us more than others based on our design. Right? But really for all of us, you know, survival is that's the whole 7-centered game, right? It's strategic survival. And so it's a very vulnerable place to be, you know, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to be teaching anyone that I don't have a response to. It isn't about numbers, and it isn't about a financially driven thing. It's about the correct experience.
Absolutely.
It's about an experience that's satisfying for me and for the people in the course.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. When I talk to generator clients and they're like, you know, everybody, because everyone will bring up their business. They're like, you know, I'm going to do this and this. I was like, have you ever thought about setting yourself up to be in response for your clients so you can see if you're a yes or a no to working with them?
Right.
Like, you know, it's just a completely, new way of thinking. And I'm not trying to poke at one way of education, by the way. I get a little pokey sometimes. That's my... You're
cross attention. You know?
Well, that's my conscious sun, 39.4, right? Feels like the right time.
This is fine. By the way, Brandy, I'm on your incarnation cross. I'm a 4-6 cross of tension in my Uranus opposition. Can you feel it?
Yeah, right?
That makes a lot of sense for you, James.
Yeah.
I think I probably met you right as you were entering into that.
You did. Exactly.
And I feel like you just came in and brought some tension.
Welcome to my life.
My gift.
I used to try to minimize that, right? That's another thing that I'm super grateful about human design. In my foundation reading, when I learned that about myself, I was like, oh shit, I don't have to like, what? This is how this is just my way of being. Like, I don't have to like shelter that, obviously, to be aware of it. and not abuse that or try to think that's how I need to navigate the world. It just comes out. But when it came out, I'd always be like, oh shit, sorry. Like,
Yeah.
So
I just did a cross attention reading a couple days ago, and yeah, I mean, like what became evident in the reading was, you know, when he makes the right choices and meets the right people, he's bringing, and he has the 59-6, so he's got creativity and stuff like that in the picture, but he's really bringing out people's, you know, their creative capacity, right, through the tension. He's bringing out the best in his team through that tension. We need tension to grow. We need tension to, you know, go to the next level, right? So
it just would help if I had a defined solar plexus. I feel like it would feel better.
yeah.
Design is perfect the way it is.
Yeah, I know. It is. It is. And one of the reasons that we're on today talking about education so much is because James has an analyst training coming up, which you've been working on for quite a while. You let us know about this. When was it? Was it
like early this year? Yeah, early
this year.
Okay, early this year.
I think you were kind of like mulling over it a little bit when in Santa Fe, or had kind of mentioned it or something, or there was like a spark of something, you were responding to something, but you were like not, you know, emotional time. And then when earlier this year, when you're like, hey, I think I'm going to do this. And I was like, ooh, because I really, like I mentioned, I really appreciate how you can look at the chart and I'm like, I know who you've learned from, and I respect where that comes from and who taught them. And it's just this, like, the way that even like the magic square shit, the way that you can like look at variables, the way that you dive into substructure and rave psychology. And I'm just like, and you have no agenda, which is really great. Like when you look at something, it's just like fresh. You're like, ah. And then, you know, we can bring in cognition into this because you are touch cognition. So solar plexus binary, you go in and it's like you can touch somebody right where they need it, and without even knowing, you know. For example,
breaker.
Yeah. For example, like when you looked at my husband's chart and you're like, holy shit, did you know like all of your substructure, like fifth line, blah, 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 like all this stuff with the mind, and like you just like touched him right in the place that was like so important. Like, I want to learn that. I mean, not, I don't want to be you. I want to receive an oral transmission, verbal transmission from somebody who has that understanding, because I understand the importance of the oral transmission, like with listening to Ra, you know, or it just like hits you in a different way. And the way, that's what I like about understanding different ways of education. I'm on a tangent. Sorry. Is like when you're signing up for classes with certain places, like you see a pop-up, here's your teacher, you know, you get a look at their body graph, but you don't know how they teach. You don't know what they have to offer, you know, what they satiates them about the system, what makes them feel successful about human design, you know, makes them feel peaceful, what their story is. Yeah.
Like what drew me to Amy and John was listening to their podcast and getting to like ride my emotional wave. Listening to them and getting to know them and hearing their stories and like feeling who they were through their voices, you know? And so I think that's where I've learned in the last year. And I think why I've been so drawn to you, James, is we've met in person a few times. I kept going to your talks at the conferences. I think you did a lot of talks at the first conference. And I remember I was just like, I don't even know him, but I'm a yes to like to listening to him and being in the room with him. And so there was a pull there. And it's funny because you were like, oh, I knew I was a yes to analyst training. I just didn't know what training it was, you know? And then it's like, that's where it comes in. And so,
Right.
And we're right angle crosses. So it's like, this is really for us.
That's what, when you first pitched it to us, I called her and I was like, I really want to do this, but I feel like it's more for me than it is for my clients or even my business. It's actually just more for me.
And then through that, it's bound to serve somebody, but it's for me. It's for understand, because then I can inward generator. So like, tell me about me. Who am I through my responses? I'm surprised that I have a response to analyst training right now, actually, because I thought
you're not building a human design business.
I'm not building a human design business. I mean, me and Teresa have Being Sacral, but like we're not responding.
That's not like our main source of income or anything.
No,
it's just something that we do.
I'm just like in my experiment, and through this, I'm just collecting these tools and this information, because how I interact with people and communicate people and operate my brick and mortar business, very much structured on human design, very much 9-centered. How can I nurture more people at their nature? Just understanding this system, even if I do nothing with it monetarily. Lights me up. Like, so to be able to like see somebody at that level.
Yeah. No, I love what you're saying, because, it's not for any reason that your mind can grab onto, right?
My mind is kind of like, why the fuck are you doing this? You're not creating a design business. Like I love doing the responding classes, generator intensive, but like, this isn't because I want to, I don't know what's next. I don't know what I'm going to respond to. I just know I'm a yes to this, and I'm like, okay, let's go for the ride.
Yeah. Well, who knows? It might open up something new. I mean, there's just been a lot of things I've done in my life where I had no freaking clue why I was responding to it, and it sort of enriched me in some way. And sometimes you don't even know how it enriched you, and that's okay too. It doesn't mean it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think what you're getting at is it has so much to do with chemistry and just trusting that response. It's not an analytical, rational decision, as really nothing is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I liked how, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also like how, I think one of the first things that we connected on was the lack of trauma-aware education in the human design field, which again is fine. Like, some people don't want to go there. If it's not correct for them, that's fine. But I think you had even mentioned it, that, we didn't know as much about trauma when Ra created this and when he was alive. And there's just been so much advancement in the evolution of that kind of awareness and the effects trauma has on the body and the nervous system. And so it's almost like I need a trauma-aware teacher to feel safe in that kind of space, because it's just a much different experience.
Well, and as you're deconditioning and you're like going through like multiple shatterings, and we're asking people to trust the authority inside of their body, and you're telling me that I need to listen to my body and I don't feel safe in my body. Wait.
Exactly.
Or completely disconnected from my body. I don't listen to any cues from my body. I don't know what it feels like to feel. That's a lot of the stuff that I work on with people, is just like, what does that feel like? Let's tune into that feeling. Let's allow that. Let's find resource in the body, where it's like, a lot of people are like, what do you mean? What does that feel like? They don't, which I understand. If you never allowed yourself
to shut down
your body in that way, how would you know?
No, I think trauma is entering into the field. It can't not. And I saw it really kind of blow up a bit at the HD conference. I think in a beautiful way. Beautiful in the sense that I think people owned it maturely, they worked through it. But as we start to hang out together more, as this really becomes a community and not just a loose constellation of individuals around the world, we're going to get together and we're going to push each other's buttons, which is okay, and there's a cellular deconditioning in all of that. I was talking to some friends at the most recent conference, and I was like, I really felt like I was actually shedding something, working through something for a few weeks afterward, but if we don't address trauma head on, it's just going to show up sideways. Even if we do address it head on, it's always going to show up sideways to some extent. So I think that what we all, and many of us were together when certain things happened, I think the community got to witness it, and now we can't pretend like it's not there.
Yep.
Yeah. And just to be clear, this is not a trauma-based education. I'm just trauma sensitive, trauma aware.
Well, that flavors it. I think it's important to know that who you're learning something through is aware, is trauma aware, because it flavors, it colors the whole course, I really enjoyed looking at, why is the word just left my brain?
I don't know.
When you get like a class schedule.
Oh, the syllabus.
Syllabus.
Hmm?
Yeah. I really enjoyed looking at that and how thorough that was and explanatory it was. And I was like,
Well,
damn.
I love how you expressed your investigations
Mhm.
and you were kind of like, look, this is what I've found out for myself over the last 7 years. And it kind of like, if you're down for this, then cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like reading through and it was numbered and I just remember being like, yep.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
you've verbalized a lot of things that I didn't know how to express, like things that were churning in my emotional wave and I didn't know how to say.
Yeah.
And then you put it into words and I'm like,
Very
that's
well.
it.
Yeah. You are able to articulate the things that it's like when I feel into stuff, and Teresa and I would have conversations and I'm like, what is it? And then we get the syllabus and I'm like, no shit. Like the articulation and the things that I would have only hoped to see in an analyst training are there. And I'm like, hot damn. And the fact that there's no, like, you don't have to be all in, like you can choose which ones you do.
Yep.
Which is amazing. The fact that you meet with the people before they commit to make sure that you're in, you're a right fit on your end.
Yep.
If they don't have the foundational courses under their belt, that's okay, because you'll meet with them and see where their level of education's at, because we can get all of the information about the gates and the channels and the centers and the types, orotypes anywhere, know. And so you don't have that as a prerequisite to take this.
Yeah.
Very intimate.
I really feel, and I know you're defined ego, so I really feel like your heart is in it. It feels like you're not just, obviously you're wanting a bargain, you're wanting to get paid, but doesn't feel like you're just running a business and doing this for money. It feels very much like you want everybody to be in the correct space for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, you could easily take anybody's money and sign them up for the course, but I really admire that attention to detail and actually wanting what's correct for the person and not just to make money off of them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it feels good to me too. I had a lifetime with a not self career of, as most of us have, pushing that boulder up the hill, and not finding any satisfaction. And to me, if you know my chart, 59-6, a lot of tribal stuff, like I want to feel connected to you. We're either intimate, and we're getting close and we're co-creating something and we're going deep, or nothing at all.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's how we were in our intensive. It was like, we didn't even know what it was going to be. But to me, I knew that it needed to be an intimate space and it needed to be people that were willing to open up in that way and get intimate, because if not, I was going to break through in some way. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, and coming from another defined ego, the value is insane. Like when I saw that it was like twice a week, I was like, yeah, woo, like, oh, it's more than once a week.
Well, it allows you to build some momentum, and I know not everybody has that spaciousness in their schedule, but if it is meant for you, so that was, Rave Cartography was my favorite of the trainings that I did, and I think it's because it was twice a week, and I liked the pace that it went at and the depth. And as an emotional being, I'm just like, give me all the depth.
And there's a lot of homework in this too, which you can respond to or not, you know. But it's an opportunity to get personal, guidance from me, if it's correct for you. So it's going to be a rigorous and intense, whatever it ends up being, 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
But
and it's just like it's an awesome value. And if anybody who's watching Coffee Talk has any interest in it, if it is correct for you and you guys jive, James is offering a free 20-minute rave psychology
reading,
deep dive, which is insane because the amount of information he can go through in 20 minutes is like mind-blowing.
It'll be a lot like what we did at the conference, as a matter of fact. It'll be all that substructure stuff. So if you see this, you have a click with me. It's just icing on the cake.
And it's yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's awesome.
I'm surprised that I'm this excited about taking analyst training, because for a while I was feeling like nope, nope, no, and I was feeling defeated, right? Because I have excitement for the system, and I didn't see, there was nothing out there that satiated that thirst that I have for education at a deeper level.
And I think also, as fourth lines, we hit walls in our education, and this might be for, I don't know if this applies to people who aren't fourth lines as well, but there's just this feeling of like, I need to commune with other people who are in the experiment. I need to hear it orally from somebody. I need my teacher to know me, you know, and there's only so much I can just like listen to and read on my own to really understand something deeper. And so to me, it just feels like I end up hitting a wall, but I know that I'm not done integrating and learning and moving forward. There's just this wall that I've come up against. So
yeah.
I felt everything you're saying, you know, personally, you know, I mean, I just feel like this is the way that I am with everything that I go deep with. Is I get lost, I get confused. I'm not sure if I'm just not understanding it or what the deal is. And sometimes I'm not understanding it, but sometimes I am understanding something that needs to change.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, hey, I feel like I'm in a corner here. I can't really move forward. And that's when I'm like, oh, I've been waiting in transference, or, oh, I don't need to be doing these sacral sounds. I actually have an internal response. And that's a lot of how I end up correcting things as a 5-1 with guilt motivation. Is first I get stuck. You know, first I have to go through that experience myself. And I also had the experience of just being so excited about this knowledge, but not really finding people that I click with for years, you know. And I finally did find some people that I clicked with, and some of them just served me for a little while, then I moved on. But it was really, you know, it's a long journey. And yeah.
And I'm kind of surprised that you and I have a response at the same time for this, because there was a time where she had a response for analyst training. I didn't. You know, it's not like we have to do everything together. I mean, my split is like, let's do everything together. But no, I was feeling like, I have this excitement. She's just like, I feel like I got to do something. You know, I'm feeling a response for more education. I'm like, I'm still waiting. And so when this came out, I think I called you. I was like, did you get James's email?
Yeah. Well, and I've gone through a whole emotional wave with all kinds of education the last like 4 months. And so it's so funny when you're an emotional being and you know that something's coming in and something's going to shift, but your mind is trying to like make sense of that feeling. And so I was like, I felt like I was in this tornado of emotions, just being like, I know that something's coming in. And it was just really wild how it worked out. I love reflecting on things.
Yeah.
Like, how did that, that's crazy how that worked out.
When we first got the email and her and I were talking about it, our minds were like, how are we going to pay for it? And make it make sense and all this. And we're like concocting all these ways.
Let's be strategic.
And then all of a sudden we're just like, what if we just listened to our response and said yes and see what happens? And then earlier today, we were talking about something. Teresa's doing some sessions here, some other things, blah, 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 just lined up. She's like, oh my God, that pays for it. And I'm like,
there
you didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to like effort, you know, but the mind is like, here's how you're going to do it.
So true. Like I have seen so many times where I thought I had to do something, but I didn't have a response to it. And I don't do it, and I don't do it, and I don't do it. And then finally, all of a sudden, it changes and it goes away. And it's like, now you don't even have to ever do that thing. And it's like my body just knew. It was just tapped in, you know? So.
But the mind is still like, but you should do that thing. Look, you missed out on that.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
For me, I know that when my mind is going against what I have a response for in my body, when my mind is like, what the fuck are you doing? That's how I know it's correct. That's how I know it's right. Like, because I just feel this energy and I'm like,
vulnerable.
My mind is like,
yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, it's all good. It'll be fine. I trust the energy. Yeah. I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about. Is there anything, did you have anything that you wanted to touch on?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
I think we've been externalizing a lot.
I know.
I throw me a few softballs. I mean, I'm just trying to think, you know, it's a very different program for some of the reasons we've already discussed.
Should we talk about how you have it structured, or how, like, do you want to go?
Sure. Well, I guess I'll say a few things that are different about it, and I'll talk a little bit about how it's structured. I mean, obviously, you know, as we've been talking about, it's so much about transmission. And so, you know, you're getting me, and if you have a response to me, great. If you don't know and you're curious, we need to meet and make sure there's chemistry, you know, as you said, because it's not just anyone can join. I have to have a response, you know, to really be able to support you in the way that I know that I can. It is a 3-semester program, but you can take 1 or 2 or do whatever you want with that. There's no commitment to finish the whole thing. And it's basically going to take place starting in December. First semester is in December. Second semester will probably be like early spring, and third semester probably like early summer. But it also depends on where everyone's at. If you need more
And the
time,
semesters are only 6 weeks.
about, you know,
Wow,
and where my understanding is that I'm starting with this premise of 12 classes per each. We might end up going a few more. I'm not the best with time, as I don't know whether you know this about me, but I tend to kind of just, you know, whatever, you know, run over. And so if we need to do 13, 14, 15 classes, that's what we do. And I just want to see how everyone's feeling and make sure you guys have enough integration time between semesters, and we'll just kind of go like that. This is very different than legacy programs. And I think that the way why they are the way they are, staggered out over 3 to 4 years, is because of how they started. Mm-hmm. You know, back then, they had the information, but they didn't necessarily have the deconditioning yet. Because the deconditioning didn't really start till you had strategy and authority, which is very late 90s, right? PHS didn't enter the scene till what, 2005 or 6, something like that. So it made sense to stagger it out so people were really living it before you were sharing it. But that's not today's world. I mean, there are people, you know, you guys have been in it for several years. A lot of the people that I'm working with have been in it for several years. I don't need to artificially stagger this out over years, because I think I know better about when you're ready, you know, to share this with clients. So the whole thing is going to be in under a year. It does not at all feel rushed. It feels very well paced to me. It's going to be very thorough. And of course, it's going to be a matter of practice. But so that's one of the big things, is very different timeline, no strings attached. You can do anything you want with the information. I'm not going to be steering you toward a style of presentation, because how could I? I mean, that's up to you, right? It isn't about a particular format. I want to show you how to keynote so that light bulbs go off in your head. Mm-hmm. And so that you can really pare down this abundance of information, and you can track the red threads, you know, that are really the most important issues for that person. But when you witness me doing it, you know, especially if you're on my fractal and responding to this, I'm sure you're going to then have the confidence to do it yourself in your own way. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'm doing, which I really don't think is a big part of the legacy programs, is I really want to kind of unpack some of these elements of the body graph. Like, we're going to go really deep into color transference, right? Motivation and transference, view and distraction. We're going to unpack that to a level that you haven't read about or seen before, you know, and you've gotten a taste of that by some of the sessions we've had live at the conference. So I really just want to give you a 360-degree, really thorough grasp of the knowledge, so that, you know, you can tell a story that really impacts people. Mm-hmm. You know?
Is that hitting your 1156?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Love a good story. And I think that there was a talk that you did at last year's conference that was about the not self. And that was the first time I'd really heard anybody structure a reading like that, or look at a chart like that and be able to connect dots for people in a way. And it was really cool because you you would like use some of your clients' charts, but not tell us anything about them. And we'd all kind of start saying things like, oh,
like, what do you think this person does? Like, look at them and what do you think they do for a living? And then, because you would actually know who they are. And so, and then also I appreciate the space that you hold while people are learning and like potentially like screwing up, if you will, or saying the wrong thing or there's zero judgment from you. You like can hold that and guide that in a really great way. I appreciated that of the lecture because we were just like popcorning, spitballing, and the way that you didn't make anybody feel like ashamed for anything that they were saying or experimenting with.
Yeah, it was just like, let's exchange some ideas. Like, what do we see in this chart? And then you would tell us about the person and their career up until finding human design, and it would match up with the not self map. And it was just such an interesting way to look at the chart that really opened those were light bulb moments for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm confident that in a year's time, this field is really going to change because a lot of this knowledge isn't out there.
Yeah.
You know, and as you said, the trainings that exist aren't right for everyone. So it's still in the hands of a small group of people.
Yeah.
You know, but if you really understand a chart intimately, you know, I was just giving a reading for a musician and a singer, I could see what he was singing about, you know, and I told him, you're probably singing about these themes, you know, and he laughed, you know, you should be able to take it to that level. So,
yeah. It's just another layer of being seen. And that's like, I want to see people. I want to be able to see people at that, even if they have no idea about design. I don't have to tell them. I want to speak to that part of them.
Yeah, right. I mean, I always wanted a picture, you know, like for me, it was like, okay, I can see, you know, they've got this ego trap and they've got this splenic trap and they're, you know, here to operate like this and do that. But it's like, but what does this all add up to? You know, you should be able to see a human being, you know, in a situation, grappling stuff.
Yes.
You know? Yes. And when you can tell someone that type of vivid story, I mean, you're going to know it because you get looks.
Yes.
You get these kind of deer in the headlight looks, you know?
Like, how did you know that? Yeah. And I think that's where my sessions with people have evolved to is probably, you know, I have 1156. I'm looking for the story of the chart. I'm like, who is this person? What are their pain points? What are they dealing with? What thoughts are they having? What are they telling themselves?
Yeah.
And being able to kind of weave the story of the chart along with the real life experience that they're telling me and things that I've observed about similar configurations or whatever.
Right.
That's where it all starts to come together and giving real life examples. I think that's something that I was thirsty for and that I haven't found a lot of in the traditional human design corners is just like, what's the story? What are the real life examples? What's concrete here? What are some like modern ways to look at this? And I think the keynotes are super important. But it's like, sometimes I read the line companion and I'm like, it's like reading a foreign language, you know, and it clicks when it clicks, but it's usually been somebody who has that exact line that I'm learning about, or myself reflecting on it and seeing it play out in their life or seeing it play out in my life. And I can understand it, but yeah, and to me, I need communing with others in order for that to be smoother.
Okay. Yeah. I've got to tell you, I'm feeling it with this differentiation right now. What I'm feeling right now is you're talking about your definition of speaking with how you want to meet with your clients. And I'm sitting here like, I'm tribal as fuck. I just want to take care of people. How can I take care of my tribe and nurture people and nourish them truly by being able to make them feel seen as with so much compassion and grace and humanness.
Yeah.
And like, I can't do that with a traditional foundation reading. I mean, I could if I broke away, like took some training and broke away and then figured it out on my own. But that's what was kind of lacking for me with one of the routes of education was this is how you have to do it.
Yeah. 110%. you know,
and almost fear-mongering into like, if you don't do it this way, because I remember hearing that in some of my classes, if you don't do it this way, you could steer this person away from human design. They might not ever want to look at the system again. Like fear-mongering you into doing a reading that way.
some of the ways they present it almost steered me away from human design. They need a reality check on that. No, I totally hear you. And I think, you know, I think because my primary mentor in all of this was Kamut, and she's right mind and right brain. So let me take a step back. One of the funny things is I really only had one human design reading, but I've had about 100 hours of one-on-one coaching. And then I've done a bunch of courses, right? But I really haven't had any whiz-bang impressive readings. What I've had is I've had the experience of working with someone with a right mind and a right brain who's incredibly talented. She just has the channel of talent in really just meeting my life in reference with the map and going super deep into all the different aspects of it, you know, and everything, every new aspect of it that I kind of bring into my awareness, it's like a piece of me that was missing that suddenly integrates, you know. But I think this is where I have that flavor that probably comes from her and that background, and just, you know, she's not designed to do these kind of slick readings, you know. And so like what you're saying, like, you know, it's important to learn from our life experience by watching our families, our friends, our clients, and our colleagues. And I want to bring that type of insight and observation to you guys. For example, I've found almost 100% correlation with people that have an undefined ego and an undefined solar plexus. They have stomach issues. Why do they have stomach issues? Because it's been a lifetime of being threatened and intimidated and emotionally overwhelmed. And they keep swallowing. They keep swallowing someone else's stuff and swallowing their own truth. I really haven't found one exception to that, except one person said it used to be the case, it's no longer the case.
Wow.
You know, and I've seen that 30 plus times. So that's a really important insight. So whenever I see that configuration, I always say to people, you know, do you have stomach problems? Here's what it is. You know, here's where that comes from. You need to know your energy so well, right, that you can identify those foreign invaders, not identify with them, maintain your boundaries. And if you can't stay centered and maintain your boundaries, know when to leave the room. Hey, this is an important conversation. I'm not trying to back out on it, but I'm emotionally overwhelmed right now. We need to just pick this up again at another time. Otherwise, it's a lifetime of acquiescing, and it actually is damaging your physiology.
Boom.
I feel like you just blew some minds. Yep. I'm thinking of all the people I know.
I know.
Open emotional centers now.
Living through my brain. I'm like, what?
And when you really get deep in PHS, which is beyond the scope of this particular training, I mean, you can really get specific about the organs and the systems that are under stress. And I've done this to the point where I've even said, you know, hey, there's some sort of stomach issue and a gallbladder issue. And I'm thinking of someone specifically here who was actually throwing up bile from their gallbladder. I mean, so you can map it very precisely. And there's always a behavioral component to health, right? There's always a psychological and behavioral component.
Gosh, and this is what I so appreciate. I just keep coming back to the word differentiation, because I just feel good. Sorry. I'm just like feeling, just like, I don't know what, I can't articulate. It's just like, yeah.
It's all good. You got the feels. Yeah.
I do. I have the feels.
Getting dark over here. I'm starting to become like a shadowy figure. I don't know.
Good.
Because you're a fifth line. I'm just kidding.
Right.
Don't hold them up
I
too
can
high.
see you can't see me.
Oh, man.
Great chat. So how can people get a hold of you?
So my website, jamesalexandercoaching.com, is a great way. You can, you know, hit the course tab in the main navigation and learn more, download the PDF. You can DM me on Instagram. You can DM me on Facebook. And again, you know, if we don't know each other, let's get to know each other,
Yeah.
you know, see if it's a fit.
You know what else I appreciate too is that because I felt in my first class, as I took my second and third with John and Amy, love them, that I was just another person in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Like the teacher had my chart, but they didn't get to know me, you know?
Yeah.
And so the information was like given, and it didn't feel like they saw me.
Which when you're running an organization that big, I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
But that's why I'm so glad there are people like you out there that are trying to do a more personalized, differentiated.
Well, he's willing to get on the stake, bro.
I mean, gotta appreciate those fifth lines that are willing to stick their neck out to.
Yeah.
Because this could create controversy. You know, I'm sure there's people who are going to watch this and be like, I can't believe that.
Oh, I'm sure someone's pissed off that I'm doing this. I'm going to get a stern letter. You know?
Stern letter. A talking to. A threatening letter.
Yeah, perhaps. But
you're just rolling with a 9-centered way of being.
I'm doing it. Yep. Nothing's going to.
You're following what you're responding to.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, you know? And I'm so excited, you know, meeting people so far, the people who have signed up. I'm just like, I love my fractal.
Yeah.
You know, I love my fractal. You're all so incredibly self-aware and sensitive and willing to challenge norms. You know, I see aspects of me in each of you, you know, and I'm just like, no wonder we're really clicking, you know?
Yeah, that would be her 59.6 and my 45.21.
Right.
Aspects.
There's that. There's that too.
Someone's gonna do a live about James later.
Oh, yeah.
They will.
Yeah.
Can you believe they talked about that on Coffee Talk?
It's gonna happen. I've got people that come back to me like, someone was, you know, bashing you on Instagram, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Whatever.
Yeah, get in line.
Instagram's like a fake world, anyways.
I've noticed.
It is.
Yeah.
We were talking about that.
I know we were talking about it earlier because I used to care so much about what people thought about me in this space, and there's been something that's shifted over the last like 4 months maybe, where I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't care. I just don't care anymore. I used to feel like I needed to show up a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, but what if people think this and da. I have a completely open ego. That's gonna come with the territory. But yeah, there's just something that's been shifted. I'm like, you know what? The people I'm meant to connect with on here, I'm gonna connect with them, and everybody else can go live their life.
We have to drop the 7 center virtues, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it really is. In order to truly be myself, I have to be okay with people not liking me.
Totally.
Anybody's going to be themselves.
You say that so easily.
Well, and
I'm not there yet. 100%.
No, I know. My solar plex is like, huh?
I think a perfect, you know, topic for that, you know, we like to think, oh, they're a nice person. Oh, great. You know, like that's a virtue, like they achieved it. You're both designed to be, there's the binary of friendliness or meanness, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so you guys both, you know, you're like wagging your tail like a golden retriever, you know, super friendly, you know, but that's just a mechanism that life has to help you fulfill your purpose by externalizing, you know? And so it's good just to kind of see the plain reality of it. I look like a really dark, cynical figure now.
Do you have a computer by you? Turn on your computer screen.
Yeah, it won't hit the angle where we're at. But if we're going to keep going, I'm just going to turn on a light. Or
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
We going. We're off to the races, folks.
Yeah, I wonder how many Instagram posts this is going to inspire. Here she goes.
People just get emotionally activated very easily sometimes in this space. And I used to kind of be in that space too. Same. Of like, well, I don't agree with you and I can't believe you're saying this and blah, blah, blah. And I just, I have such an appreciation for differentiation
Yes.
now. I'm amused when I don't agree with somebody because I'm like, wow, wonder what their design is. Wonder how they're able to see it through that lens. And it's not from a space of like, fuck that person, like coming after them. It's more from a space of like, interesting, you know? So,
yeah. I mean,
That's a beautiful way to be with it. I mean, I think the other thing is, so there's the way people see, and there's also sometimes you pick up on the energy of trauma in it, which is a point of compassion.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
and look, we all, you know, we all get triggered. We all say regrettable things, you know, that's okay. It happens. But yeah, I mean, I love what you said about curiosity. I think that's really the nine-centered, you know, communication exchange. It's like, oh, wow, what do you see? You know, here's what I see, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that we all go through times in our experiment where we feel like you know, we're seeing our own selves more, and then we have expectations of how other people should be in their experiment, and then we get smacked down to reality, and it's just this back and forth until you finally like find this foundation of compassion.
Yeah. Well, even, you know, I'm provocative, but I'm not here to talk shit about anybody. Like, I legitimately love so many people in this space, even the people that I don't agree with. It's just, I'm able to see it from a space of like, it's almost like I don't fault people for their perspectives, you know? And also, conflict is just a part of the differentiation process. Is like, I wouldn't expect, there's some good friends of mine that I have very different views from, and that's fine because we have different designs and different life experience. I'm not here to tell them that they're wrong. It's just, it is what it is. And I think that conflict actually helps us grow closer. And this is my 659 coming out, like, intimacy through conflict, you know. There isn't going to be any progression.
Well, funny you mentioned that because my personality Mars is in gate 6. So personality Mars is the crux of the differentiated self, right? So we're really mutating that, and we're going to express that gate, that line, in a unique, differentiated way, you know? And I can just see that the conflicts I've had have been so mutational.
Yes.
From them, you know? And again, you have to get beyond the mind's conditioned rights and wrongs of everything to really just embrace life experiences. I mean, life is just supposed to be everything, you know? There's a time and a place for conflict.
I don't feel hard feelings from you whenever I've talked to you about the conflicts that you've had. It's just been like, yeah, that happened, you know? And maybe it's just because you were at that place in your wave where you'd cycled through and moved through it. And, and as an emotional being, that's usually how that works for me. Like, I can say a lot of things to Brandy when I'm cycling through my wave, and then on the other end of it, I'm like, whatever. You know, it's just, it was an experience, and I moved through it. So
Emily on here mentioned watching the movie and not taking it personal.
And
I want to touch on that, and also understanding that it's not entirely healthy for our bodies to not take things personally in a disassociated way.
Right.
You know, like totally being of this way of being like, nothing is, you know, it's not personal. It's blah, like, oh, you know, where you're just cut off, disassociating.
Like, it's okay if somebody hurts your feelings.
And what does that here? How are you as an individual going to express how that moves through you and healthfully, whether you're defined or undefined in certain centers and blah, 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 it doesn't matter. But how are you embodying your own experience with meeting the truth of not taking things personally?
Totally. I mean, and I think that's, you know, one of the biggest traps that I've seen, as I said, first half of life in all these spiritual communities, it's a lot of bypassing. And there's a lot of bypassing that happens in, you know, HD as well.
Yeah.
And
no choice, bro.
yeah, I can't quite get the height of this right. But, you know, and you said it well, because I think the trick is to feel it, to experience it in your body, but not get into the stories.
Yes.
Right. that is some, it's something to kind of practice and feel into. It's a subtle thing.
It is. It is. Yeah. And I know that what helps me get through that as a fourth line is externalizing. And because I'm undefined solar plexus, I have like a month I randomly cry. I had an extreme bout of rage this weekend. Extreme. I guess I haven't let any anger out lately, and I was one angry bitch this weekend.
Yeah.
And then I didn't judge myself for it. I was like watching myself be angry. I wasn't like disconnecting from my experience. I was very much in it and not judging myself and understanding that this is temporary, and all of the life lessons and spiritual lessons and all that shit, they all were allowed to exist at the same time. And that helped me move through it and really understand it. And the awareness that I gained from that about every situation in my life, the main common denominator was support. And so it was weird how that was coming up right after the 2145 was in the transits, and just like, whoa, and I can look at all those things and just kind of observe it, but I also allowed myself to very much feel it in a healthy way. I mean, I was ragey. I was not nice to some people.
Well, anger's not wrong, right? Anger's not wrong.
No.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, especially with the manifestor channel that you and I both have, we can be in touch with that anger. I mean, of course, we could be overly identified with it. We can, all those things. But, going back to the person with an undefined ego and an undefined solar plexus, they may not be in touch with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, because anger is a boundary, it's enough,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a healthy part of the process. And a lot of things that we're just uncomfortable with and scary, we've made wrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or just label it as something and write it off.
Yeah.
And the human design system almost gives us, if your mind takes over it, it gives you more ammo to avoid or write things off or just say, oh, whatever, that's fine. It's, no choice or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever, pick your poison to write it off in that way.
If the mind takes over, the trouble is that you actually keep the energy stuck in place.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that lets the energy move is just embodied awareness. You can feel it, rather than saying I have anxiety, and rather than getting into the thoughts about why you feel the way you do, just be like, all right, it's like 2 cups of coffee. I'm just buzzing really hard right now. Okay, just be with it.
Mm-hmm.
It moves. It shifts on its own. Energy wants to move, So
But let's be real, that ego anger, woo. That's straight to the throat.
2521 anger is not a walk in the park.
I'm sitting there like,
yeah.
This reminds me of being a kid with my defined ego parents.
Teresa, I was on the phone with Teresa one time, and I feel like my MG efficiency and my husband's projector efficiency, they're 2 different types of efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just driving, and he's like, why didn't you turn there? And I'm on the phone with Teresa, and I'm like, because I turn over here. He's like, that way's faster. I'm like, no, this way's faster. And all of a sudden it was like, he has defined ego too. So it was like, whoa, we were in the car, and it was hilarious. And she's on the phone. She's like, Mom and Dad are fighting. It was just this like.
It happened at the conference too in a car. Yeah. I'm always in a car with you guys, and your defined egos are going up against each other.
Because his spleen doesn't know where to go.
Well, I love when I saw his chart, and Brandy, your husband is a unicorn amongst unicorns, as I said, and I would love to talk to him sometime.
Yeah, no, he plans on reaching out to you. That blew my mind, and it was like, no, don't confirm that. That his mind is so.
Well, it's funny because, you've got, the gate of control and the whole 4521, and then you've met your match with this guy whose mind is unmovable.
Mm-hmm.
He is the unmovable mind. So you have really met your match with him.
Like big knot.
You should see
the unmovable mind meets the unmovable will.
Unmovable will. Yeah.
100%. I don't know that I've ever heard him concede.
No.
Even when you've been blatantly correct.
No, he will not. He will not. And then that's just like, and then we laugh about it, because it's not like, things that will, and
it
then
doesn't fester for two. It's
right.
just,
But then I have gate 49. I'm like, well, guess we're divorcing. We're not really divorcing, but I'm just like, I'll call Teresa up. I'm like, yep, feeling like divorcing for this stupid little thing that his mind will not let me win.
49, I've got gate 49 as well. So 45, 21, and 49 is a hell of a combination. Get pissed off and then you're done.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah. Yep. Because then my mind will start to be like, well, I don't want to change my life. So how can we be divorced and still live in the same house?
I was gonna say, if you see, these are the things that human
how can
design
we still be friends?
really actually like. This is where the true illumination of this system comes in. Do you think you'd still be married if you didn't know about human design?
No, 100%.
I honestly,
100%.
I don't know if my husband's gonna watch this. I don't know that I would be either.
My husband doesn't have social media, but I'll tell him.
I'll tell him.
Like, no, I don't. I see multiple times where we would have ended, and compassion is what has come in, and understanding of who he really is, and the fact that I'm not here to change any of that.
I used to nitpick the shit out of my husband. Oh my God. And now I'm just like, oh,
yeah,
it's that.
Yeah, it's that. That's fine. That's who you are. That's what I signed up for.
And
and I can change my mind, because if I still have a yes response to be married to you, and if that ever changes to a no, a real true no, then I'll follow that. But so is my mind.
Yeah, I'm like, we're still in the same room, so clearly we're still doing this thing together.
Yeah, I have the weird experience. My partner Rachel, she got into design like immediately when we met. She was already kind of interested in astrology and clicked, and like it was very different than my experience with design. Was like trying to figure out who I could learn from, and it was like this very meandering path. But with her, it just the red carpet was rolled out with me and my connections, and she was just like took to it like that. And
what a dream.
Within 3 months she did a retreat, she had a reading, and she was like feeling so validated and all these things that she knew about herself. But you know the story, we don't, and all that. But I can't imagine being in a relationship with someone that wasn't in the experiment. It just, I mean, who knows? You never know what you're going to respond to, but
yeah. Even just understanding that my husband was a projector, because I'd always be like, why don't you want to like work on yourself and care about who you are, and all of like all the generator stuff, I'd be like, why don't you, motivation was huge with understanding. And I have a lot more, I don't have patience, but I'm like, it's really important for you to not be all in hope all the time. Don't be in hope. I mean, like I can see it, I can feel it, but I'm just like, that's just, mine should take some action.
But also knowing you can't do anything.
But also knowing I can't do anything. And I'm like,
gonna do what he does.
Right. Yeah.
But it just allows you to kind of laugh at also wanting to change the person in any, even if they're in not self, even if they're in transference, that's their experience in that moment. And
well, with you having an innocence motivation husband, it could be like, be more masculine, and like,
that was our biggest fight
so
before human design.
You're probably like in the whole like spiritual, like masculine, feminine, like get in your masculine, man.
Dude, I remember just like losing it on him one day and just be like, I just wish you would be taking action more and being in your masculine and all this stuff. And he didn't even know what to say, because it's so unnatural to him to be in that mindset of like desire, which is what I am. And so, man.
But isn't it telling? So many relationships are like this. We are in relationship with our transference. And it can totally work, but you just have to bring a lot of awareness to it. Otherwise, it's well,
knowing when you're conditioning your partner to be like you, because that once I realized desire and innocence, I was like, holy shit, I'm
right.
Condition him to be like me.
Yeah. And it's an injustice,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Especially with like hope motivation. It's like, why can't you see the world as I do? And like, the very like ethereal feeling of it.
Everything's just gonna work out.
Everything's gonna work out. And he's like, hey, you are fucking crazy, woman.
It's like, we just dumped our life savings into this business. Why? how is everything going to work out?
Fine.
You know? It's fine.
It's fine.
We could go on and on, clearly.
Oh, just overall appreciating differentiation in all aspects of design, and that should also include education.
Amen.
It needs to.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really.
Amen.
So, if there's people out there that are watching this that have this feeling inside of them or having a response, whether to taking James's analyst training, or maybe you've been tinkering around with putting out your own class or whatever and because you feel pummeled by a system that kind of makes you take one path, like follow your strategy and authority.
Yeah. Right.
Follow your strategy and authority.
And just know that there are other options out there, and if it's meant for you, it will fall into your lap.
Right. And the right
path.
Yeah, but it might in a year, you know?
Yeah.
And just wait for it. You'll know when it comes. I'm just curious if anyone has any questions. I haven't really been tracking too much.
Yeah, I've been kind of looking, but I haven't seen any.
It's just been more conversation.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Drop them in the comment box.
Now would be the time.
Our defined throats aren't run out.
They'll keep going. Is there anything else, James, that you wanted to touch on about the training, or do you feel like you got to share everything you wanted to?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, right now, people who don't know me, you've got a little taste of my energy, and just reach out if you have a response, and, we'll see if it's a fit.
Yeah. Yeah, and a course bonus, 20-minute rave psychology reading.
Not the reason to do it, but it's great.
Not the reason to do it. It's like, I think through that, you will get to, like, if you don't know James well and you're having a response and you sign up for it, through that, you'll really get to see how he operates and what he'll have to offer in the course.
Yes. I did have people show up who I didn't know, and they, had a response to getting a reading from me, which really sort of sealed the deal.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't theoretical. They could really see, because they're like, well, if I'm going to learn from you, I want to know how do you do this?
Yeah, I was just going to recommend that to everybody. Like, if you're on the fence and you want to get to know his style more, just book a reading with him.
Yeah. What level of education are you hoping people will have before the training?
It's a great question. So I would say that if you've done things like rave ABCs and cartography, you're probably set. But if you haven't done that and you've learned on your own, let's just talk about it. But you should be pretty familiar with, the entire surface in terms of the centers, the gates, the channels, the lines. You don't need to know anything about substructure. I'm going to walk you all through that to a very, fine level of detail. And when I say that you have to kind of understand those things, I don't mean you have to know every corner of it. You don't have to know every keynote. You just have to know the gist, So if you're unclear, let's kind of talk. I'm definitely going to ask that question and suss that out as we get to know each other.
Yeah, and James, you're hopping on calls with people to make sure it's a fit, and I'm sure you'll go through that in the call.
Yeah,
if you're having a response to this, if this is something that you're a yes to looking into further, then just hop on a call with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to go into the themes of the 3 semesters?
Sure. So the first semester starts in December, and it's all about building the story of the conditioned self, so the not self. And this semester is going to be sort of like, if you want to learn how to do a foundation reading, that really happens through the first 2 semesters. First semester is the not self portion, but it also goes far deeper than that, where you could put together a 75 or 90-minute not self reading. And I think that's kind of maybe a surprise to some people, that you could talk about their not self at that length. You should be able to talk about someone's not self for 2 hours. There's a lot of material there, right? So the point there is to go beyond just the very useful prompts of, hey, am I trying to prove myself? Hey, am I holding on to what isn't good for me? And create a story, create a narrative, so they can really identify with how their mind has gotten them into trouble, And Brandy, Teresa, you guys have both had a not self reading. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, but I think it was you, Brandy, who was like, hey, I know I want a reading from you. I want something custom. I think I just want to go deep into my not self. And I had a response and just developed this. And it's really evolved a lot over the past year. But point being, you can take this first semester and provide a really detailed, powerful, not self portion of the foundation reading, or do your own not self reading. Second semester is all about the differentiated self. So, you know, the David in the marble, if you will. And the third semester is a relationship analysis. And we're going to go super deep into that and even look at whether people have the need for sex to be connected with intimacy and emotions or not, what those sexual themes are in the chart, what are those things that person needs in a relationship, and then how these two people are going to kind of come together. And we're even going to bring in color and things of that nature. So it's going to go super deep.
Yeah, even just like hearing you talk about the 3 semesters, I can really feel your 659, just that intimacy in the topics, you know, getting more intimate with the chart.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to be plugged to that chart. We're going deep.
Let's see anywhere. Let's see. There's a syllabus. Yes, that goes through it. Oh, there's a question right here. How is the workload for projectors?
So it's going to be the same sort of assignments are going to be given to people, but I'm going to create options. Be like, you could work with today's lesson by doing A, B, C, or D. Mm-hmm. Take your pick or do none. There's no pressure. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to get more out of it if you get my feedback, but at the same time, it has to happen through your inner authority. So, you know, but you're going to have some options and there's no expectations or pressure.
Dude.
That's it.
It's going to happen through your authority. Like fucking butter the bread, baby. I don't know where the hell that came from, but I was just melting in that. Like, yeah, yes. Here's your options. You even get to, I could sacral through them.
What? Yeah. Do everything, do nothing, do whatever is right for you, you know? But I can tell you, I'm going to definitely give you guys a lot of opportunity to do that work because you do have to do something to get better at this. You know, maybe you do just want to listen to me and great, but if you actually want to be, you know, improving your skills as an analyst, you got to practice. So.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question. I see all of your MGs. How do you feel about working with projectors, and then specifically mental projectors?
There is there a mental projector in this course? I think we have 2 self-projected projectors. I feel good about it. Actually, a lot of my clients are projectors. Mm-hmm. Probably 30% of my clients are projectors, you know, quite a few. So there's no issue with that whatsoever. As I said, we have a few projectors already in the class.
Yeah.
And I saw the question. This is not IHGS certification. So if that matters to you, not going to be the right fit. What I'm going to offer you is lots of personal support and a really solid education.
Mm-hmm. Said that like a defined ego, bro. Okay. How many people are in this cohort, or do you have a feeling into? I don't cap it.
There's going to be a floor, okay, of 10 people. I'm not going to say what I think the ceiling, where it's going to land. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, it's not going to be, it has to be intimate. I still have to just feel like it's manageable and it's intimate, but I'm not going to define that more specifically.
Yeah, love that. And, you know, I think, just side note, being an MG and doing classes with Teresa, like, we can work a room.
Yeah.
You know, we can really work a room like that. Yeah. Anyway, We're not teaching this, but I'm just saying from our experience of like having a group of people, it's almost, for me, it's easier than smaller. I don't know why, but.
I just missed a comment.
Oh, let me see. Okay. Someone says, I've been pulled towards you, James. I binged all of your posts and my sacral was lit the fuck up. Woo. Definitely can't wait to watch the replay of this. Awesome.
Cool.
Another question is, how is your class style presentation and sample charts, question mark? Like what to expect with the style of?
Definitely sample charts, definitely analyzing the chart together, and presentation as well. So one of the things that I yearn more for in this field is for people to trust themselves and share what they see, right? I want to see more digested content wherever you're at. Even if, you know, you're early on and it turns out to be wrong, just, you know, grapple with your experience and I want to share something. And so if you look at my Instagram, you'll see that I'm not really phoning it in with boilerplate content, you know? And so the type you see there on my Instagram is also, that's what's going on inside of me. I didn't strategically choose that from a marketing angle. That was just what was alive in me and I put it out there. So if you like my style of writing and my insights and observations, the course is going to be filled with that.
Bring the heresy.
Bring the heresy.
You're definitely not working the Instagram marketing with like you know, like you're not trying to be liked. You're just being you.
Instagram's not a mountain, you know, and I'm a mountain environment. I'm not going to push anything from a marketing standpoint. It's just the right people show up and find me.
Yeah. What type of HD software would people need?
That's totally up to you. I have the MMAI browser-based subscription, okay? And I also have Neutrinos through Windows, which is the original software. You can use any of it. You do, however, need the substructure accessible to you. And the cheapest way to get it that I'm aware of is the I think it's mymechanics.com or .org. And it's like $10 a month, you know, billed annually or something like that. And it's a great software. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing. That's all you really need. I make some recommendations. I mean, you do need, it's essential to have the line companion. It's handy to have the Ray Ching. And I'm going to have a few other book, you know, recommendations as we get closer to the course. But line companion is a must.
Yep. And if you're out there and you don't have access to those resources, DM us.
Yeah. And I'm happy to do the same, you know, for people. There's,
Yep. That book can be pretty pricey. I love the mountain reference. Sort of explains why I feel uncomfortable around Instagram. Yeah. I mean, it's an environment.
It's an environment, you know, and mountain is more than just a place. I mean, it's about, you know, taking the high road. You know, so if I go down the mountain to meet people where they're at, if they're not really taking the high road, I get burned. You know, I have to stay up on the mountain. All mountain people, stay up on your mountain, let people come to you. And it doesn't mean that they need to be mountain people. It just means they need to meet you in a way that feels right and you're not caught up in the pettiness of life. You know, it's not about being petty and dramatic. You know, that's not what we're here for.
Yep. All right. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Jen Zarda said James can definitely work a room.
Jen stumbled into one of my talks at the first HDHD. Yeah.
We didn't even know Jen was there when we first met.
It was like I recognized her,
Yeah,
but then I didn't realize it was the same person I was talking to on Instagram.
Yeah, wow.
Just on the roof, Jen.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for questions, unless anybody has a last minute one.
And don't hesitate, just DM me on any of these platforms or shoot me an email.
Yeah.
Happy to.
We'll tag James's account on here too when we post the replay. So
Cool. This was fun, guys.
Yeah.
So be with you, and super psyched to have you both in the class.
yeah, we're stoked.
Awesome.
Thank you all for joining us. If you hopped on anywhere past the beginning, the replay will be up soon, so you can check it out. Also, don't forget, you can also catch these episodes on YouTube. So if you are looking on our page and you see maybe a graphic for a video that you can't find because Instagram is awesome, go to YouTube, check it out, type in Human Design Coffee Talk, and you'll find all of our episodes on there. So Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Later.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
Jane.
Bye.